Ladies and gentlemen, today we talk about the big boss man and his legendary career. The man from Cobb County, Georgia, that took law and order into his own hands, was a one time tag team champion and a multi time hardcore champion, and had some great feuds throughout the years. But he started his career, like every wrestler, as a jobber back in Jim Crockett Promotions in the late to mid 80s. And Dusty Rhodes, the booker, saw something in this young wrestler, then known as Big Bubba Rogers. So he took him off of TV and repackaged him as Big Bubba Rogers and put him with the Midnight Express and the bodyguard of Jim Cornette. So he was involved in massive feuds on the outside because of his association with the Rock and Roll Express and Jim Cornette. And it was going to be Dusty's he was Dusty's protege. He was being groomed to be that big monster heel that Dusty could face when he wasn't facing Ric Flair, because they were grooming somebody else to take that spot. So Dusty needed somebody else to work with, and he saw a lot in Big Bubba Rogers, aka the Big Boss Man. And they would have matches, tag team matches, and bunkhouse stampedes, but the feud really never really got ignited the way it should have, because as they were getting ready to ignite the feud, he decided to jump to the WWF like so many before him. And he was put in a spot in the WWF where he was making a lot of money because he was working with the main event guys: Hulk Hogan, the Macho Man Randy Savage. And this is when he essentially debuted for the company, because they put him with Hakeem, aka the One Man Gang, and made them the Twin Towers. So they were feuding all over the the world with Hogan and Savage. The Mega Powers would main event Survivor Series 1988, and Big Boss Man would get his singles push with Hogan, and that would culminate in a cage. So, I mean, the Big Boss Man was put in a great spot in WWF when he initially arrived. And he had, not only working with Hogan, he worked with the entire Heenan family trying to get to Mr. Perfect and that coveted Intercontinental title, which culminated in a match at WrestleMania 7, which I think the Big Boss Man should have held the Intercontinental title at some point. That's just my opinion. But he also had feuds with the $1 Million Man because Slick did some underhanded things, and that's how they turned the Big Boss Man to a good police officer. He also had feuds with the Mountie back in SummerSlam 91, which was a great pay per view overall. But that was another great feud for the Big Boss Man. He teamed with Hogan several times throughout the 90s as a face. And the only reason he left the World Wrestling Federation was because of the steroid trial. He thought Vince McMahon was going to lose the trial. So he jumped to WCW, which, of course, we all know WCW was a hot mess in the early 90s and mid 90s and even before it closed. And because they couldn't name him the Big Boss Man, they gave him this weird guardian angel persona, and he was feuding with Vader and a handful of other people, but it just never, that character never went anywhere. It never did anything. And then they finally decided, oh, we have this Big Bubba Rogers character. Let's just turn him back into Big Bubba Rogers. And he feuded with Sting and the Earthquake and a few other people, but WCW really didn't utilize the Big Boss Man or Big Bubba Rogers because he was just another wrestler that they signed and didn't didn't have anything to do didn't have anything for him to do. I mean, he joined the Dungeon of Doom and he was kind of like the enforcer, but it didn't go anywhere. So his first run in Jim Crockett Promotions was amazing. He got to work with Dusty, he got to work with Magnum TA, he got to work with the Road Warriors and so forth and so forth. His first run in WWF, he got to work with Hulk Hogan, the $1 Million Man, Mr. Perfect, the Mountie, Nails, you know, the who's who, when he was tagging with Hakeem, so he was working with the Macho Man and Hogan at the same time. And then he gets to WCW, and it's just like, I get that you're feuding with Sting and Vader, but it didn't go anywhere. And then, of course, he joined the NWO, which didn't make any sense at all, because then he got hurt and you never saw him again, really. And then he did the smart thing and came back to the WWF and reinvented the Big Boss Man character, and it was really cool. And he was a tag team champion, a hardcore champion. He was the enforcer for the corporation. I mean, he had some pretty good matches. I mean, he went up against Mankind, he went up against The Rock, he went up against Stone Cold Steve Austin. He teamed with Ken Shamrock. He went up against The Undertaker. Um, had a lot of great matches. Nothing that would put him in like that mid card Intercontinental Championship picture. But he was working with the top guys, so they valued the Big Boss Man more than WCW ever did. And of course, he would be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2004, where he rightfully belonged. And I hope you learned a few things about this legendary wrestler, the Big Boss Man, the man from Cobb County, Georgia.